Do I have to think differently about this in life, or do I have to, control my food, this or that? The truth is, if you really want to know the truth is God gave us the gift of wholesome, natural foods. We got screwed up by the corporations and their advertisements and everything. So getting back to the truth, do you want to, lie to yourself? It's one thing to lie to another person, let me tell you that, but you're lying to yourself every day. But here's the glory of God's gift, all of these delicious, fruits, vegetables, all of these things God-given. Mankind could not even conceive to make anything. They're synthetic foods and all of that, those chemicals and everything are poison. And as you know, you go to the supermarket or even at home, you pick up a package that has 49 ingredients of them, only one. It only needs one ingredient of food, but this is where all the calories come from. So we need the entire psychic change. To me, it doesn't come by, or anything in my life, by going out trying to weigh and measure everything and trying to control it. See, I did that for a year. I tried to control it, but the more I had tried to control it, the more power I gave it. Because what was I saying? You're in the problem, the solution. If I went to a meeting and I says, look, I'm trying to control this food, I'm making it a reality that the food has control over me, that it is a real problem. When I get scented, I realize the answer to my problems. I have no more problems. So I get out of the guilt, shame, and remorse, and I can see with clarity my relationship with people. I always relate to two, because it says in the book here, resentment is the number one offender. It's that relationship to life and everything, the answer to all our problems, which Bill talks about on page 15, but in many places in this book here, it talks about the solution to all our problems. So the food addiction, it says here, unless the person on page 29 in Doc's opinion can have a complete psychic change. On the other hand, and strange as it may seem to those who do not understand, how could I possibly understand a psychic change? When I went to school, for years of schooling, I also have a degree, I'm a pharmacist, I had a lot of years of schooling, and in all those years of schooling, nobody ever talked about, they talked about the intellect. Nobody ever used, again, the word, psychic change or thing of spirituality. It was all about, if I can figure this out. We're in the age of science. If I can be like the movie stars, if I can control more people, if I could be more successful. In school, they said you had to be good at sports, you had to get good grades. It was all about the success thing. So why not? When I figured in life, the more I could grab from things and the more I could figure it out and use the intellect, the ego, then my life would be great. But unless this entire psychic change occurs, the same person who seemed doomed on page, it's actually Roman numeral 29. So I had on Doc's opinion, he doomed, had so many problems, he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol food. So once a psychic change has occurred and you had all of these problems and all of these things going on in your life, you can find the solution, the answer. And again, in the lobby I had, there is an answer. Because again, our brain, God created us with a brain that knows in the hypothalamus how much to eat, not to eat. It's when we're believing all the corporations too and all their craziness, and we can't think for ourselves. We're a prisoner of the corporations, or again, even the movie stars and how we should look or be or whatever it is in life. And then we wonder why we're so miserable. Expectations and resentments ready to happen. And when we use the ego, all things from the ego are false. All the things we think about. When I think and my thinking is dangerous, right? And I think and I say, that's not true. I can't believe it. It's not reality. The real reality, we have a human side and spiritual side. So our addiction to food, the real reality is, again, eating wholesome foods, seeing a clarity with the foods. And I always bring up the water, because this alone, having this psychic change, instead of resisting things and saying, I don't want all of those gloopy drinks, which people say is so delicious and it makes their whole day and it becomes their higher power. When we get clarity, understand we don't want all that garbage and junk and poison. We want something that's really good and wholesome, like the water. To me, this is the most delicious thing. I look forward to it. And that this alone will solve your problem, having the clarity towards the water, because how many calories a week do people drink? Right? And some of those drinks are 1,200 calories or 600 calories, all of those drinks. So, that's the solution here. And it says on page, again, 29, towards the bottom of the page, one feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change. Many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach. It's saying here, and all the doctors and scientists, I could just talk for myself in my whole life, everyone I try to talk to, even today, couldn't figure out my problems for me. There's only one solution, and we will know the answers. The answers are, the way out is in. Nobody can give you the answers. No human being, even our own self-thinking on the human side, our own self-will can't give us the answers because we're blocking out the spiritual side. And I always use, people say, well, what is all this spirituality about? It's like being in the zone, like when playing sports. If you try to figure out how to hit a tennis ball or a golf ball, you won't be able to do it because it's when you get centered. And the same with life, being in the zone. So being in the zone with this food addiction. Am I in the zone with this food addiction when I'm trying to control them, self-centered fear? And also people say, well, if you eat this, you do that, you got to go back to day one. It's not what it's about. We can be glorious. And I always say we can be glorious when we backslide and we binge eat or whatever we do that we think is negative because it's a way to get back centered. We can start the day over. So the remorse, shame, and guilt brings us back into the addiction. Page 24 and 25, actually, the name of There is a Solution. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we've had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, towards our fellows, and towards God's universe. The Creator has entered into our hearts and changed our thinking. Being reborn, before the third steps, it talks about that. So everything else we've tried to do with our addictions, even, I always bring it back to people, because people, whenever you get upset, depressed, and anxious, 99% of the time you're thinking about your relationships to people. We have a solution now. It's the spiritual solution, having compassion and love. Same with the food addiction, having understanding, compassion for our frailties, but restarting the day over and saying, okay, I did all of this wrong, or I got upset at somebody and I yelled at them. But what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. Because the question is, people always on the meeting will say, well, yesterday I had all of this food and I went off but are you doing it now? We have the eternal present. This is the higher consciousness, is being in the present. The past is regretting the past or, upset about the future. That's all nonsense because who knows? It could all be an illusion. But when we rise above it, when we have the spiritual solution towards our addictions, towards life, answer to all our problems, we could wake up not in remorse, shame, and guilt and be happy and joyous. It's interesting. Bill had that spiritual awakening. And he talked about, in the beginning, he felt he woke up, he was in quicksand and all around him was full of fear and being upset. But he had that psychic change, and in this book, in every story in the big book, they talk about the psychic change. It's really true. Having had that spiritual awakening, people are in these meetings for years and are in the problem and not the solution. It's all about letting go. So right here, right now at this meeting with the food addiction, let go. Stop trying to control it. When you try to control it, you're hanging on, you're grabbing onto it. Let go and get centered. And then when I get centered, pray and meditate, the answer to all my problems come to me. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. So my life, the food and the addiction to food and planning my dinners and everything about it was the only normal one. That was my self-will got me into that problem. They are restless, irritable, and discontent. This is on the bottom of page Roman numeral 28 in the doc's opinion, until the sense of ease and comfort comes at once by taking the first few drinks or first few bites. Drinks they see others take with impunity. And it goes on to say the solution here. This book is amazing. Every page, it talks a little bit about the problem, but it talks about the solution. So the solution to our food addiction is this. A little bit further down, it says, unless the person can experience an entire psychic change, there's little hope of recovery. So I needed an entire psychic change because my thinking was, again, it was the material things that would satisfy me. It was money, food, lust. We talk about the 7 deadly sins, gluttony and lust, right? Those are 2 of them. But pride being the number 1. If I have more these pleasurable things, momentary, it did work. It was a solution, but only temporary. Very temporary. But the most joy and happiness comes from the entire psychic change. But the psychic change is telling us here is the truth.